Hello, Canucks fans. Welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation, brought to you by Bet365. We're coming to you from the Pacific Toyota Dealer Studios. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. My name is Dave Petrelli. I am joined, as always, by Harman Dial. It's that time of year, folks. We're doing back-to-back prospect episodes, although we're not going to ask just the exact same questions to Dave Hall as we did to Stephen Ellis on yesterday's show. We've got some different questions for Dave because Dave recently published, I think it got published over at canucksarmy.com, some more names that the Canucks could sign in free agency, NCAA free agents that are available. Of course, the news coming out earlier today, Harm, that Tyson Gross, I like that name, Tyson Gross, Calgary-born Tyson Gross, has signed with Calgary Flames. Canucks were believed to be interested in him.
Yeah, there was a lot of interest for him, and I think for a while, because he is Calgary-born, the ties were there, and it was long suspected that the Flames were probably the front runners. And I think NCAA prospects, when they're looking to sign with an NHL team, the first thing they obviously look for is opportunity, and then sometimes having the familiarity of being closer to home is that tiebreaker, if you will. And the Flames, after having sold off a lot of veteran pieces through the middle of the season, are probably the second worst team on paper in the NHL, but right ahead of the Canucks. So they have a ton of opportunity to offer players. And then again, it's similar to when Troy Stecher was making his decision for where to sign, and there were a number of teams that were interested. And at that time, it was okay, the Canucks can offer you an opportunity, and they're your hometown team. So not surprised that Tyson ended up going to Calgary.
Also, his dad works for the Flames. Did you know that?
I did not know that part.
Yeah, no. His dad's the vice president of partnerships and sales. Like, he has a prominent role in the business side for the Calgary Flames. So take your kid to work day. They get to go to work together.
I'm sure that didn't hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you want to work with your dad? Be honest.
I think so.
Yeah. I think so too. I think I would. I don't know about like now in my old age, 26. But when I was like 18, 19, I guess Tyson's 23. He's gone to college. Yeah. I just don't know if I was like 18, 19, if I'd want to get out of high school and immediately start working with my dad. You know what I mean? I don't know.
It's different though, because obviously he's on the business side. He's not in player development or one of the coaches. I think that's where it would maybe be a little bit awkward or weird, but that's obviously not the case.
All the Calgary Flames promotional material has Tyson Gross somewhere in it now. Just moving forward, they just always have him in there. All right. Let's get to tonight's game. Canucks take on the Predators. It looks like it's going to be a Nikita Tolopilo start. Nils Höglander, we talked about it yesterday. He was a extra forward during line rushes at Canucks practices. It looks like he's going to be a healthy scratch tonight. We don't need to beat a dead horse. We've had many Evander Kane conversations, and we said it. You said it yesterday. This is why it sucks that the Canucks couldn't find a taker for Evander Kane, because now you want Curtis Douglas in the lineup. Well, Nils Höglander's the guy that sits. And again, it's obviously a lost season for Höglander, but he was looking better playing with Elias Pettersson, scored a goal, just has been looking a lot more engaged and a lot more involved. In long term, like Nils Höglander theoretically is going to be here next year. Evander Kane likely is not. So yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, and only 2 or 3 games ago, we were having this conversation about Pettersson setting up Höglander for his first goal of the season, and how both guys were driving play that night, spending a lot of time in the offensive zone, and it looked like they were having fun. They not only seem to have on-ice chemistry, but off the ice, we know that they're really close friends. And to have that support there when both players have had underwhelming years relative to expectations, I think that helps. There's obviously a level of familiarity and comfort that's there. And the part that really sucks when you bump Evander Kane in that spot is we just know that combination hasn't worked, right? How many more games, how many more minutes do we need to see of Kane on Pettersson's line to know that combination hasn't yielded great results? Whereas you look at Höglander and Pettersson together, even going back to the second half of last season, that's when Höglander played a lot of his best hockey. He was one of Vancouver's better wingers down the stretch. He was right among Vancouver's leaders in 5-on-5 points. His play driving metrics were awesome. And a lot of it was playing with Elias Pettersson. And so to not give that a proper long look when you have no other no other winger that's screaming and kind of knocking the door down for, hey, I deserve that opportunity instead. If now's not the time to give that duo a long look together, when is it ever going to be the time?
Ashton Ryder in the chat said, anytime you have a chance to put a 35-year-old in the lineup over a 25-year-old who signed for next season, you just have to take it. Yeah. Anything else on tonight's game?
No, the other thing I'll say is, because Sassone has actually looked very effective on the wing the last few games, and I think his speed has popped. I've liked the look of him on that line with Teddy Bluger and Linus Karlsson. That's probably the reason Höglander had to come out, right? If Sassone hadn't turned it on lately, I imagine there maybe would have been a scenario where Sassone comes out, Kane comes in for him, and Höglander's still in the lineup. But because Sassone's been playing so well, it forced Foot to have to look elsewhere, I think, in terms of who else to take out of the lineup. And their other middle six line with Ogren, Rossi, and Besser has shown sparks and flashes as well. So I imagine Foot didn't want to break that combination up. And now I'm curious who Höglander comes in for next game, because I don't want to see him in the press box for back-to-back games. So whether it's maybe Sassone having a quieter night and he's the guy that comes out, maybe Curtis Douglas if he doesn't play many minutes and has a relatively muted impact. If it's Kane, although I'd be somewhat surprised based on him getting this plum opportunity, that Adam Foote's gonna be bold enough to healthy scratch him. But for a Höglander, it can't be back-to-back multiple games in the press box.
Agreed. All right. Let's bring in Dave Hall. Dave joins us now. He's a presentation of our friends over at Greta. Great spot for all games, home and away. You can skip the line and not pay cover on game nights if you're wearing the home team's gear. And of course, there's also the game day specials at Greta, including $3.33 off select food items, $3.33 for select drinks, and more. With the arcade, bar, and street food menu, Greta's a great spot. Make it your spot to watch the next game. 50 West Cordova Street is the address. Let the games begin. All right, Dave Hall joins us now. Dave, we had Stephen Ellis on yesterday. We asked him a few questions about the 1, 2, 3 and the start of the NHL draft.
Okay.
I can't remember where you stood last time we talked. Were you still trying to tell me Stenberg number 1? Where did you come in on this conversation last time we talked? I can't keep track anymore.
I am proud to showcase that, here at Canucks Conversation, I am officially on the Gavin McKenna first overall train.
Nice.
I've come over. I've flip-flopped all year round. I've flip-flopped, but I finally decided, I've thought about this all year now, long and hard. I lose sleep over it. And I've come around and I have decided Gavin McKenna first overall is just unanimous at this point. I've really upped up my views on Gavin McKenna, and I just, since the World Juniors, like, even take away the point production, obviously the point production has just been insane, but even beyond that, it's just like the way that he dictates the game is just something we just don't see very often. So I think I'm firmly on the Gavin train at this point. So number 1 needs to happen at this point.
What have you seen from him in these latest viewings that is maybe different from the start of the year when he got off to that slow start in the NCAA?
I just, like, for one thing, so we all know, for me, like, I'm big on, not only character, but their motor and just willingness to kind of do whatever it takes to win a game. And I just feel like his engagement in the game has just been a little bit more since the World Juniors. I don't know if that's something that primed him up, or if it's, maybe he was even hearing some of the chatter about his game and he's just willingly decided that he's going to be a little bit more engaged. But he just seems a little bit more engaged. And not only that, it just, you realize that when, he's driving that Penn State offense, and when the puck touches his stick, things just happen. I don't know if you caught, the highlight from one of his assists last night. He has 2 assists last night to advance Penn State. But, there's just one play where he gets the puck in the neutral zone, and he just, while everyone's on the rush, he just completely stops up and slows down the entire play and just lets it all come to him while he sucks in a few defensemen. And then he just finds, I believe it was Jackson, whoever it was on the wing, to for the easy one-timer. It's just, he just has that vision. And for me, he's just stepped up enough that I think at that point, even if he were to be a complete bust, which I just don't see happening at this point, I just think the upside that he shows is just too much to skip on, at least for the Vancouver Canucks perspective.
I like it. I like it. Dave, NCAA free agents. I want to ask you about your list that went out today, but before that, Bennett Schimek signs with the Abbotsford Canucks. This is a guy you wrote about. This is a guy you seemed pretty excited about.
Yeah, I mean, he's excited. The one thing you'll say is, it is an NCAA free agent, especially in the crop like this. For me, there is no Colin Graf in this year. That said, he is. I do find it interesting that he came in on an AHL deal. I did think his numbers and his game, his work ethic were enough to warrant some NHL interest. But, that being said, he's on an AHL contract, which actually benefits the organization, in my opinion. I do think he was a player that probably wasn't going to see NHL time out the gate. So now it just, it gives him a year to kind of figure out his game and see if he can produce at that next level. With him, for the thing that I like about it, again, going back to work rate, he works hard. He's been ASU's top producing player. He's been their top penalty killer this year. A lot of his points have stemmed from the power play. I believe it was only a couple, maybe 3 even strength numbers in the season, but he just has a good work ethic and an overall soft skill that I think, at least warrants some intrigue as a, at least an Abbotsford player who they've now, they've been dressing 9 forwards. So, any help is good help at this point.
Dave, did you pay this guy to get in our chat? Kevin in the chat, Kevin K in the chat wrote, "Hey, Dave Hall, why are you never talking about Riley Patterson and Anthony Romani? We're all drooling over Coots and McKenna." Jacob and I immediately started laughing in our private chat because the reason you don't talk about those guys apparently enough is because we don't want it. We don't ask you enough about those guys apparently, because if you are set up for it, you'll talk about those guys for days. You're like Riley Patterson's. I've never heard anybody talk so much about Riley Patterson as much as you do. Tell us, Riley Patterson, Anthony Romani, give us an update on these guys, Dave.
I don't know if I'll take that as a compliment or not. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, good for Riley Patterson. I mean, he's on pace for almost 90 points at this point. Definitely going to shatter his career highs. He is signed, so NCAA is off the table. So he is a player that I do anticipate coming over to Abbotsford as soon as Niagara is knocked out. And at this point, they're kind of a middling team. So although he's literally driving the offense. He's 20 points ahead of anyone on Niagara. Most of his points have come at even strength. So he's not a power play merchant. He's even quarterbacked the power play this year. Like he is Niagara's offense, and not the single-handed reason that they're in the playoffs, but he did score the shootout winner to propel them to the playoffs. Like it's been all Riley Patterson, and I'm hoping to talk to him in the next couple weeks here. But I think all indications are that he should be in Abbotsford this year. And at the same rate, we are talking about a 19, almost 20-year-old in a league that has been filtered down a little bit with all this NCAA talk and all that. So, I don't want to diminish any of what he's done, but, it does need to be taken with some grain of salt. But at the very least, he's definitely crept up. And, as you saw in my organizational rankings, like he's jumped up to at least a prospect that I think people should be talking about as a 4th-round pick. At the very least, he's brought enough to warrant some good Abbotsford, if not a 3rd-line center role at the NHL level.
With Patterson, from what I've seen, I love how intelligent he is. His puck handling in tight, very smooth, cerebral player in terms of how he sees lanes and gets open, drives a slot. Maybe the biggest weakness I saw and the biggest question mark I have as far as how his game is going to translate to the pro level is the skating, where some of the goals I've watched him score, it feels like he has a lot of time and space to maneuver. There maybe isn't much back pressure. And I think he has a tendency sometimes on the rush to, as he gets close to the slot, glide rather than continuing to skate forward. When he does eventually make that jump to the AHL, are you anticipating there to be a bit of an adjustment period, or do you think, like, because of the skating, or do you think that he's still going to be able to right away find a way to be an instant difference maker in the AHL?
No, it's a great point. And you brought up the glide. Not only his skating, but I do think his overall engagement in the play is something that he does need to work on, whether that's gliding into the zone or just, some of his off puck habits, whether it's back checking or any of that stuff. I just do think he does need to work on being a little more engaged. So I do anticipate, especially this year, maybe at the starting of next season, some issues, but I do agree that I do think his intelligence and the vision that he shows is going to be the number one thing. I'm not even sure if the goal goal scoring really is going to translate. Although he has shown a bit of a knack to score some goals that he didn't really score before the season, so that is an intriguing thing that he's kind of developing a bit more skill set. But skating is one of those things where like I do understand that it does need some work, but it's also one of those things that a lot of players need work on skating, and we've seen now time and time again, Bo Horvat, not to say that he's a Bo Horvat, but players that we've always said are poor skaters, even Ratu, he's made, although still not polished and probably will never be polished, there still is, it is something that can be worked on in the off season. And I do feel that this year, coming into Abbotsford, he's probably going to spend a lot of time with firsthand with that group. So I don't worry so much whether I do think it'll affect him if he does make a bit of a debut at the end of this season. But going forward, I do think it is something he can work on. For me, it's just more of that overall engagement and just two-way play that I would like to see a little bit more. So that's kind of one of those things that need to happen at the American League level, and he's going to learn real quick. That's how you sink or swim at that next level. So we'll see how it goes.
Okay, Dave, out earlier today on CanucksArmy.com, 5 more potential NCAA players for the Canucks to target, with several BC ties. Give us a couple names here.
Yeah, I just tossed that out because, obviously we saw Tyson Gross, who I don't rank my list, but, he was the first player named in my original list and probably my top forward going in. But then again, as you guys already mentioned, he's a homegrown kid. His dad does run one of the departments in Calgary, so the writing was kind of on the wall. But so that's why this time around, these were names that I already had, but I wanted to make kind of a separate list that had a little bit more ties, because it does factor in if there is a little familiarity with the area. It helps. And so Tyson Gross is off the list, and he's a big frame guy that could be a 3-4C in the NHL. If you're looking at a BC guy, I think Brandon Burr, 23-year-old Burnaby native, is an intriguing guy. He's got good size, just like Tyson Gross. He's a winger, not a center, but he's got great straightforward skating, a good shot. I just think he's probably going to be a player that warrants some NHL looks. So Brandon Burr is the only real local kid that I've really targeted. But then you got a ton of guys that have played in the BCHL. You got like Hayden Stavrov, who, if you're looking for a more of an offensive guy, bit on the smaller side, whether that's for Abbotsford or even at Vancouver, I do think he's got a really nice shot, and he's willing to go in the greasy areas, even though he's a bit of a smaller guy. So Hayden Stavrov with Dartmouth is definitely a name that I'm not gonna lie. Whether it's Jack Musa or Hayden Stavrov, if you're looking for offense, I think I'm really hoping that the Canucks make a push for either of those two. I just think as much as you want size and as much as you want that all that truculence, we'll say, the organization does need offense. Abbotsford specifically needs guys that can put the puck in the net. So a Jack Musa, a Hayden Stavrov are two names that I'm really looking for. And then I'll just throw one more. I do have a feeling that the Canucks probably will stay away from defensemen this time around. Obviously their pipeline does have a lot. They do have Aiden Celebrini, who, I don't think he's shown enough to get an NHL contract, but whether, he could be a name that they bring in on the right side for Abbotsford this year. So I do think they'll probably hold off, but a guy, Isaiah Norlin, and if you're from Kelowna, you might recognize this name. He top defenseman in the BCHL 2 years ago with the most points. This guy's 6'6" and a decent skater, and he's got some pretty good points in his first year as a freshman at Colgate. So he's a defenseman, a right shot defenseman that I'm definitely keeping my eyes on. He is on the younger side, so whether he makes that transition right now remains to be seen. But you don't find 6'6" decent skating right shot defenseman.
What's his name?
Isaiah Norlin.
Norlin.
You're West Kelowna. Top defenseman. I think I believe it was 48 points as a defenseman in the BCHL 2 years ago. So
here we go. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a beast. I even put a little bit of a montage of some of his goals, and he walks the line pretty well. Obviously, again, with all of these guys, there are going to be you can't really nitpick too much, because there are things about these players that you just need to bypass. There's a reason why they were, they're 22 and still haven't, garnered a chance. Another name that is on my original list that I've actually heard, I've done some digging, and I've heard that they're not in on, is TJ Hughes, but he's a name that is almost guaranteed to get, maybe even an NHL shot at the end of the season. So
no more Hughes. That's
no more Hughes. I think they're just moving on.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Good. Hey Dave, how's Kirill Kudryavtsev looked this year? we talked about him a lot. I feel like last year had the
Yeah.
solid rookie AHL campaign, was a staple for Abbotsford's top four blue line during that Calder Cup victory. It was so impressive in that playoff run. I know he was hurt for large chunks of January and February. Recently came back in the lineup, but how's he looked in his second year in the A? And do you look at him as a player that should warrant a look with Vancouver down the stretch?
Well, to answer the last one, he's a player that needs to get a look. I just think there's two players in Abbotsford that I just think I'm banging on the door right now. Again, on Conversation, I'm putting my neck out. Ty Mueller and Kirill Kudryavtsev just need to get looks. At this point, there's no need for them not to. As you mentioned, Kudryavtsev missed almost 2 months of action. He's been back for 4 games, still hasn't had a point in those times. So if you're a stat watcher, you're probably going to think that he's been, he's been slow out the gate. But I can say, I watched last night's game, and he is just such. He uses, he's a stocky guy, but he's not an overly aggressive, like a huge guy. So he's not imposing players. So when he's coming in on the defense, just the way that he uses his stick is just so impressive. And he broke up, I'm going to count maybe 9 plays last night in the defensive zone that were single-handedly like scoring chances that he just ended from his stick. He's just a player that he's so smooth, and he just does things so nonchalantly. I just really like the way he thinks the game. I think he's, we've said it for so long now, but for a 7th round pick, I just think some of the stuff that he brings to the game is just so impressive. No, he's not, he doesn't have a huge shot. He's not, blowing the minds off of the score sheet. He's not doing all that, but he's just doing all the little things, playing all situations. He's Abbotsford's guy, and he's single-handedly, he's made that backhand just look like a completely different beast with him back in the lineup. So he's definitely a player that I do want to see, at this point in the season where there's nothing to play for, but bragging rights. I do think he's a guy that the Canucks should definitely give an audition. He could play both right and left side. He's killed penalties. He's obviously not going to get on the power play in Vancouver, but he can do that. I just think he's just so smart, and just the way that he breaks up plays with his stick is just so impressive.
Hey, Dave, what did you make of the quotes from Max Sasson yesterday, where he was talking about the culture that they had in Abbotsford and the communication specifically between those guys, and just what do you think made that Abbotsford Canucks team special? Because now we see a lot of these guys on this team, and Sasson kind of pointed to the communication, but like as someone who covered that team a lot last year, like what made that team special, do you think?
Well, it helps when you're winning. It does help when everyone's kind of, younger, coming up together, and they're winning a lot of games. They got a really nice bench boss, Manny Malhotra, that's kind of driving all that. He's just such a good communicator. And, not only from what I've seen, but from who I've talked to, he's just he just has a way of just encapsulating the entire room. So I do think Manny Malhotra is probably a big driver for that culture that is down in Abbotsford. But, you got the one thing I do, and is really encouraging, at Dyson Ice, I know Sportsnet ran some good interviews, and you heard of all the Zeev Buriam, Tom Verlander. I know they weren't in last year's Abbotsford team, but they all just seem to, from all accounts, they seem to be really good buddies right now. And so what I like about these Abbotsford guys is they were young, they were winning, they were having a good time. They all had chemistry. They were coming up. And so I do think it's a positive thing for the Vancouver system that all these players are coming up now. You got Kirill Kudryavtsev that's hopefully coming up, Ty Mueller. Those guys can now come up, and they can join that dressing room, and just they can evolve together this is part of the rebuild. It's not just the players that you get, but it's the culture that you bring. And I think with all these players coming up, I just think it's extremely exciting. And I think Manny Malhotra was a big driver of that. You had some really good veterans on the team as well. And I just think overall that was just conducive to a really good environment. And I mean, you had guys like Max Sasson. I mean, that guy, for everything that I've seen, he seems just like a great guy to have in the locker room. So I just think there was a lot of good veteran presences, and Manny Malhotra. And like I said, I think winning does help bring the room up a little bit. So.
Hey, Dave, how close do you think Chase Reed is to Keaton Verhoff when it comes to this conversation about who the best defenseman in this draft class is? And is he a legit consideration for you if the Canucks end up at number 3?
Yeah, he's a legit consideration. I think he has to be. Like the way that I see it is, I think you take Keaton Verhoff at let's not even say third. Just if we're talking about between the two defensemen that were probably going to go 1 and 2 in terms of D, you take Verhoff for the floor, and I think you take Chase Reed for the upside. I think Chase Reed, his dynamic ability on the back end and the way he transitioned that puck, I think, you have the upside of like, an Adam Fox. He's able to kind of manipulate the game and make plays from the back end that you just don't really see in this draft class. He's kind of come up out of nowhere as, I believe he's a 7th round pick out of the Sioux, and he's kind of come up in one of those players that's just super dynamic from the back end. Whereas Keaton Verhoff, I think you're almost guaranteed to get an NHL player, probably top 4 defenseman, right shot. That's, just a really good, solid two-way D. There's some decision making issues, all that stuff. But, I think you're picking really closely with the two. Like, I just don't know if you can really sway either way and have a bad pick. But for me, I'm going a little bit closer to Chase Reed. Again, I as I say with almost everything, I think it comes down to what kind of team is picking them. For a team like Vancouver, do they need a Chase Reed when they got a Zeev Buium who kind of brings that dynamic offensive ability, running gun style? Maybe not. So maybe a Keaton Verhoff to stabilize that back end and that top 4 is what they're looking for. But no, I don't think it's an issue at all having Chase Reed above Keaton Verhoff. Do I have him first? No, but in terms of defensemen, I definitely think he's up there.
Dave, thanks as always, my friend. We will chat with you soon. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you, guys. Take it easy.
There he is. Dave Hall. Read his work over at CanucksArmy.com. Blackfish, the weekly prospect report that Dave does, weekly Canucks prospect report, is out now. CanucksArmy.com. All right. Are we ready for the feud? Are you ready to play Feud, Harm?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Technical producer Jacob Azar, take it away.
All right. Sorry, I was a little late there. People in the chat talking about offer sheets, and I was just doing some other digging around and looking and researching.
Oh, we're getting to it in anyone else.
We'll get to it in anyone else.
We're going to talk
there's
about offer sheeting Connor Bedard. 100%.
Yes, and that's what everyone's talking about. But yeah, I was just digging into some of the other stuff and looking at some of the compensation. So sorry, I'm a little late on that. Anyways, it's time for Canucks Conversation Family Feud. You guys have an easy one this week. Your matchup last week was the Nashville Predators, and you guys won. It was a close game, but you guys did your thing. You won. You get the Vancouver Canucks today.
Oh, really? Okay.
You do. This is the game that everyone's got circled on their schedule. This is the, hey, we need to right the ship. We need 2 points. We're battling for the playoffs. We're going to go show up, leave Vancouver with a couple points, and head on home. So Harmon is going to go first. He's going to have 25 seconds on the clock. His time will begin when I finish reading the first question. Harm, if you can't think of a response, say pass. We'll get back to it at the end. Couple questions are a little longer today, so I will be lenient. As long as I read the last question before the timer goes, I'll let you answer it.
Okay, cool.
Just because the way it worked out, the questions that we have gone with are a little wordier. Okay, you ready to go?
Hang on.
No, Quad still has to mute up.
He's giving the thumbs up.
He's giving the thumbs up. All right, you ready to go, Harm?
Yeah.
Rounded to the nearest 10, how many total games will Adam Foote be the head coach of the Vancouver Canucks?
80.
Name an NHL team that pulled off a successful rebuild this decade.
Montreal.
Name a team that will finish lower than the Canucks in the standings next year.
Calgary.
Which bottom 6 team would you hate to see win the draft lottery most?
Chicago.
Using full letter grades only, what would you give the Canucks trade deadline this season?
B.
There you go. Good work. And everyone's in the wrong spot now. There we go.
How'd it go?
I think it went well. Jacob was right. I don't think this week is too difficult.
Okay.
Ooh, I don't remember what you answered to the third question.
Do you mean to mute? You can
just mute up. That'd make it easier. Disconnect. Harm, the finish lower in the standings question. Who'd you say to that?
Next year?
Yeah.
Calgary.
Right. Thank you. Quads can come back now.
All right.
And I forgot what you said for the other one too. Too many questions that are similar.
Yeah.
It was another city that started with the same letter, right?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
okay.
For the yeah.
Again, those questions are very similar. I probably shouldn't have read them back to back. That's my bad. But there we go. So the good news. Harmon went out and got every single number one answer. He got 185 points.
Okay.
Every number one answer.
That's hilarious. Okay, nice. So 15.
Quads, you're gonna have 30 seconds to get 15 points. You are up 4-0, and the other team has pulled their goalie. That's the situation you're in. All right.
Yeah.
Just knock it home. Knock it home. You're going to have 30 seconds on the clock. Your time will begin when I finish reading the first question. Now, the questions are a little long, and I'm certain you're going to be buzzed multiple times. So as long as I finish reading the last question before the buzzer, I'm going to let you answer it. But use your passes wisely. Again, If you give one of Harmon's answers, you will hear the buzzer. There it is. And I will ask you to try again. 15 points, all you need. You ready to go?
Yeah, I only answered 3 questions last week and got it done,
worked.
So. Yeah.
Now, the difference is you don't have any number ones to fall back onto. You need to hit the number 2s. I will tell you right now, every single number 2 answer would win you the game.
Oh, great. Okay.
So you
as
only
soon as I give one,
You only need one number 2 to guarantee a win. And there are 3 of the 5 number 3 answers would also win you the game.
Okay,
so
great. Let's go.
You are, I said, 4-0 with the empty net.
I can't believe people think I'm going to fumble this. People in the chat are such haters. There's no way I'm fumbling this. Go ahead.
There's no way. All right. Rounded to the nearest 10, how many total games will Adam Foote be the head coach of the Vancouver Canucks?
Oh, 80.
Try again.
70.
Name an NHL team that pulled off a successful rebuild this season or this decade.
Montreal.
Try again.
Pass.
Name a team that will finish lower than the Canucks in the standings next year.
Chicago.
Which bottom 6 team would you make? I'm going to pause here. I stumbled.
Okay.
Which bottom 6 team would you hate to see win the draft lottery the most?
San Jose.
Using full letter grades, what would you give the Canucks trade deadline?
C.
Okay.
That was almost a fumble.
It almost was. I was pretty worried.
I was a little worried.
That's why I started stumbling through that question. I'm like, oh no, I need to read fast so that he gets the answers in. You guys are going to win. I'll tell you that right now, but we'll go through every question here.
But not by a lot.
No.
I misunderstood the last question and said San Jose. So
they are not a bottom 6 team. They're a playoff potential team. So you won't get any points for that. You also passed on, which one did you pass on? The rebuild. You passed on the rebuild. You also said 70 for rounded to the nearest 10, which would mean he gets fired before the end of the season.
Yeah.
You think Adam Foote's getting fired before the end of the season?
Were there more people that said he was going to start next year as the coach?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's
many more people.
Oh,
nobody said 70.
Oh, interesting.
Wait, nobody?
Okay.
No.
Yeah, like Harm's surprised by that too. Okay.
I thought it would at least pick up a few votes.
Yeah.
No. So no points for that one either.
You're gonna go draft Gavin McKenna and be like, here's your coach. Okay, anyways, continue.
Like last week, you only actually answered 2 questions that are going to get you points, but you've gotten enough points. I'll tell you that right now. So a team finishing lower than the Canucks in the standings next year. Actually, I didn't even check to see if Chicago if there's any in there for Chicago. 2 points for Chicago right there.
Okay.
So you need 13 points. Luckily, you're getting it. You got the number 2 answer for full letter grade with C, 32 points. So you won it with that one.
Never in doubt.
It was a 4-0 with the empty net. You didn't score on the empty net, and you gave up 3 goals in the last 3 minutes.
And they hit the post.
Yeah, but you still got the win. Now we will quickly go through. So the round is the nearest 10. 80 was by far the number 1 answer, which would just be he has this one season. Number 2 answer was 160 plus, which means he coaches all of next year as well. That was number 2 answer.
Okay.
And then a bunch of different answers getting fired throughout next season. Number 3 answer is 120, so he'd get fired about halfway through the season. 110 would be getting fired pretty early in the year. 100 would be fired 20 games into the season. So there you go, Quads. No one agreed that he's at this point. Well, and you have to think about it because they're at what, game 64 tonight? 65?
Yeah.
So he's already at 70 now. So if he lasts 9 more games, then he's already rounding up to 80. So anyways, successful rebuild. Harm, you said Montreal. That was the number 1 answer. Number 2 answer was Utah/Arizona, which I think that's a good one. Number 3 answer was San Jose. Number 4 was Anaheim. 8 people said Florida, which they retooled. I looked it up. They ended the 2010s finishing 10th, 9th, 10th, and 10th in the East. And then COVID hits. And then in the COVID season, like the 2021 season where everyone was in those weird divisions, they finished 2nd. And since then, they've been a pretty dominant team. I wouldn't say they rebuilt, but, number 5 answer. So we'll give them that for everyone who said Florida. Team lower than the Canucks in the standings. Calgary was number 1. New York Rangers were number 2. Nobody was the number 3 answer. And I thought one of you guys would definitely have said no team will finish lower than the Canucks. Some people saying LA, some people saying Nashville. Again, just a bunch of the teams that you would expect. A couple people said the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I hope for like the chaos sake that the Leafs finish dead last next year. That'd be so funny. And what do we still have to go through? Oh yeah. Which bottom 6 team winning the lottery? Chicago was the number 1 answer. Rangers number 2, Calgary number 3, Winnipeg number 4. So again, 2 very similar questions. Probably shouldn't have kept them in the same week. That was my bad. And then full letter grades. This again was something you guys talked about earlier. B was number 1, C was number 2. D was number 3. Only 11 people gave them an A, and 6 people gave them a failing grade. There we go.
All I see is dubs, so that's a W. So good stuff. Also, I'm a little under the weather, I should mention, and I think that might be a little foggy in the brain. But tough one for me. But we got it done. Backed into the family Feud win, as Carl Spackler in the chat said. All right, let's get to anyone else.
Sorry, I should probably clarify because a couple people have mentioned it. I gave like a drop-down list for that Adam Foote question. I didn't even put 70 as an option because like I figured that would just it. You guys have said multiple times it wouldn't make any sense like to fire him right now. Like it didn't even cross my mind.
I haven't said that. No way I've said that. I've talked about potential ceiling lowering of your defensive.
You have
playing in this.
Okay, I guess I shouldn't say you've said that,
it's
but
okay.
There are discussions around that, including when you've had Jeff on. We've had Irf,
sure.
Like all these, everyone's saying like he's not getting fired before the end of the season. So that's why. Now it would have been pretty controversial if you guys had lost that, Quads. Then I would have given you some points for that. But like, that was on me because I just figured that it's not a reasonable answer with everything that we know. So you can continue now.
Silo in the chat said flu game Quads. That's right. It's not that bad, but yeah, a little foggy today. All right, let's get to anyone else, which is a presentation of our friends at Pacific Toyota Dealers and the Toyota Prius plug-in hybrid, a no-compromise approach to electric vehicles that offer the best of both worlds. Drive up to 72 kilometers on battery alone, enough to get you from downtown to the rink, the grocery store, and home to recharge. Seamlessly transition from electric mode to the gas engine for a combined range of 962 kilometers. There's no sacrifices when it comes to horsepower or style with its sleek, low and wide exterior and sophisticated interior. It's loaded with tech that's actually easy to use. You can plug in to recharge at home or at one of the over 2,000 public charging stations in BC alone. Visit shoptoyota.ca at your local Pacific Toyota dealer during Red Tag days from March through May. All right. Let's get to Connor Bedard. Offer sheeting Connor Bedard, Harm. The chat is talking about it. Connor Bedard, RFA this offseason. They've been able to sign him since July. Have you actually read any actual reporting on this? Because all I've seen is that they disagree about what that number should be. Well, I mean, obviously, I guess it's a contract negotiation, but the idea that I've seen thrown out there is that Bedard wants to go pretty short term, and why wouldn't he? Right? Like he's not. He's probably not at the level where he's commanding like a 13-14 million dollar AAV, where it's like a can't miss.
Yeah, he can with the year
He
he's
should.
had.
Yeah. Well, what? No, he hasn't. The year he's had.
He's had a great year. He was
Yeah,
hurt.
Yes, but he's not. Hold on. I gotta look this up. He's got 60 points in 51 games, Harm.
That's still a pretty significant step when you're the only guy producing.
Okay, hang on a sec. So, I don't want to be. I don't want to take the position of. I don't think you should pay Connor Bedard. I'm just saying I don't think the Chicago Blackhawks want to pay that. I don't think they want to pay him $14-15 million a year.
They'd be stupid not to. He scored on a per 82 games basis. He's scoring at a 42 goal pace. It was.
I would do that if
23.
Well, if he wants to go long term, that's one thing. Now you're making me play Chicago here. But I think what he's probably saying is, I think I could get more if I do this again for 1 or 2 more seasons. And then what are you going to have to pay me? But they probably want him long term, right? So there's different levels to it. But my point is more so that I think the Canucks should absolutely buck up if it's there, right? You have the ability to give an offer sheet of like 4 years at $14 million and then whatever, 15 million. And then Chicago matches it. That walks him right to free agency. You got your hometown kid. You did him a favor. You got him a contract that he wanted. He'll remember that, Harm. And then he'll hit free agency and he'll sign with the Canucks.
You're dreaming because, first of all, I do think he's going to be able to command a pretty big cap hit on a long-term deal. Logan Cooley got $10 million.
Wait, sorry, you're misunderstanding. I think he wants to go long. He wants to go short term, and Chicago doesn't want to pay him a significant cap hit on that.
Has there been reporting
deal
around that? Like,
I've read that somewhere. Now I need to find it.
Because for most young players coming out of their ELC, they'll just take the guaranteed money out of the gate. Like, I understand the logic of, yeah, if you signed a 3-year deal, I don't know, like 10 times 3, 11 times 3, 12 times 3, whatever it is. And then 3 years from now, you're closer to your mid-20s. And by that point, maybe you've got a couple 100-point seasons on your resume. The cap's even higher. You're really going to be able to cash in. I understand that logic. But how many times have we actually seen players go through with something like that? We saw it with Evan Bouchard with his extension this past summer, taking 4 years instead of going the full 8. We saw Matthews go mid-range, but other than that, I mean, Draisaitl went the full term. McDavid went short, but McDavid didn't go short because he's trying to maximize his money. He's going short to keep his options open for leaving Edmonton. And that's about the cup contention timeline. I look at most of the young players that have, especially recently, come off their ELCs. If they're big name guys, they've wanted the guaranteed money out of the gate. And that's the tough part is you can see the upside case of, if I have couple 100-point seasons, how much more could I make? But then there's also the case of, hey, if Chicago's offering you, I don't know, I'm going to throw a random number out. This isn't anything reported, but 13.5 times 8, it's $108 million. You're going to turn down $108 million of guaranteed money, dude, compared to if you're only getting, let's say, 11 times 3, you're talking about a difference guaranteed money wise of $75 million.
Okay,
extra.
but Harm, the cap is going up so significantly and could go up even more significantly. The rumors that are out there now.
I agree, but what if you blow your ACL out?
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess, yeah. What if you blow your ACL?
What if you somehow have an Elias Pettersson type mysterious drop off, which again I don't think is going to happen, but I think players tend to play it safe. Is the point I try and make? To turn down $100+ million of guaranteed money.
Yeah,
it's not as easy as you think.
I get it. Look, I get it. But $13.5 million. Kirill Kaprizov just signed for 17. Bedard could be in 3 years. Bedard could be an 18, 19 million annual player and go long term then too. Like there's absolutely a case for him to go short term on this deal. Absolutely, there is.
I understand. I'm just making the point that we haven't really seen many guys do it. We've heard that logic for a long time.
Yeah, but we haven't seen the cap going up like this either.
True,
We
but
haven't.
I think teams and agents knew at least a year ago that the cap's going up. And you look at all the stars that have recently signed with their teams, right? The Jack Eichels, the Kyle Connors, like that tier of guys that were going to hit free agency this year, they all signed long term.
But Harm, if he was okay, if say you're right, and he's okay with going long term, like why isn't he signed by now?
Because
what's the holdup?
Well, in the summer, he probably didn't want to sign because he only scored 23 goals last year. So he's probably thinking, I'm going to go out, final year of my contract, have the year he's having now where, yeah, his actual goal and point totals are going to finish a little bit lower because of the injury. But on a per 82 game basis, he's taken a huge step this year as a player. So yeah, if I was his agent, I would have 100% told him, hey, wait to play out year 3. Don't sign last summer when you had a relative to your expectations an okay sophomore season. Wait for that big jump in year 3, which he's in the middle of right now, and then you can discuss it in the offseason.
T. Rogers in the chat said, Harmon, you forgot. He wants to come home, so of course he's going short so that he can come back to Van ASAP. Same thing with McDavid. Wants to bring the cup home. Wants to bring it home to Vancouver. So what does an offer sheet look like? You call Connor Bedard. You say, hey, what do you want? We'll give you whatever you want. 4-5 years, like I said. You walk him to free agency, so if Chicago matches it, he gets taken right to free agency, and there you go. Or you get a player. You get a really good player. And all I'm saying is they absolutely have the draft capital to do it. You need your first-round picks in 27, 28, 29, and 30. Canucks have all those. I'd be absolutely fine with it. I would love it if they offer sheet Conrad. Even if they don't get him, just offer sheet him. I'd love it.
The problem is the Canucks are behind the Blackhawks in their rebuild. Even if so, I think it's a tough sell to say, hey, I know you've been on awful teams your first 3 years, but come here where it's going to be slightly worse, and because we gave you up, we're not going to have our first round pick for the next 4 years. So
but you get to play with
Gavin
McKenna, maybe.
Yeah, and then after that, there's nobody coming because we gave up our 4 first round picks.
Yeah, don't worry too much about that. Shoot, what was I going to say? Yeah, J Mobs in the chat said, I'm with Quads. You either get him or you ruin the Hawks cap structure. In all seriousness, though, as much fun as we're having with this, of course, there is no way Chicago is going to let him get to that deadline where he can begin to be offer sheeted. There's no chance that happens. Unfortunately, like I said, it's fun to imagine, but in all seriousness,
they would also match anything.
No, but that's okay. Yeah, match her this 4-year deal at $14 million. Go ahead, and then he's a free agent. No, they're not going to let it get to that harm. They're not going to.
No, I know, but my point is, even if it got to that, which they won't let it, I don't think there's a scenario where you could come up with some contract structure that they would give up Connor Bedard.
The Blackhawks would never be like, yeah, we'll take the 4 first-round picks. Yeah. Thanks very much. We'll do that. That sounds great. There's no chance. No, literally. And yeah, that like J-Mob said exactly, but that way you ruin their cap. Like I said, that is not happening. They are not going to let that happen. They won't let it get to a point where he can be offer sheeted. So it'll be interesting to see what he comes in at. Harm, what do you think with AAV? Do you think he goes short term? Do you think he goes long term? I think he goes short term. I think this is gonna be a short term deal.
I would like to see players choosing the short term option, right? I fully agree with and understand your logic that hey, you sign something that's more mid range, you're gonna hit the market again at a time when the cap's so much higher and your total earnings over the prime of your career is going to likely be higher. But again, I think a lot of players are risk averse when it comes to this kind of stuff and would rather just protect against it's such a small percentage chance, right, of you blowing out your knee or of you hitting a wall and somehow regressing as a player. But with how large the difference is in guaranteed money between, let's say, an 8-year deal, which you're still eligible to sign this summer, versus, let's say, a 3 or 4 year deal, it's such a stark difference that we haven't seen many players do it yet. Maybe if Bedard goes out and does the 3 or 4 year thing, it'll inspire other players to follow suit. But I also thought the same thing with when Matthews went mid-range, right? When he signed his 4-year deal, and he still got a $13.25 million cap hit. So it's not as if you had to sacrifice on the AAV front. I thought more stars were going to do that. And then we haven't really seen that after Matthews other than Bouchard. So
yeah, and you mentioned McDavid, but that's because go win me a cup. Show me how you're gonna put a team around me to win a cup. Have you seen Vasily Podkolzin lately, by the way?
Yeah.
He's absolutely flying after, like, I think he skated with some different people during the Olympic break because he's come out and he's just looked absolutely phenomenal for the Edmonton Oilers. There's a really good read actually right now. I mean, I guess Canucks fans might not want to read it, but it was with Vasily Podkolzin's skills and skating coach over at OilersNation.com. You can go read it. Sean Pangs was the author of that one, and it was a really, really good read. Yeah, shout out Pods, man. Like, I know it sucks that the Canucks gave up on him, but one of the better dudes we've covered, both of us in our careers, and super happy to see that he's really turned it around in Edmonton and he's made a career for himself. Like, he is Draisaitl's favorite line mate, and that is not easy to do. Not everybody can play with Leon Draisaitl, as funny as that sounds to say. Shout out to Pods. He's been great.
He's got a chance to score 20 goals this year without any power play time, really, which is massively valuable.
Yeah.
And I think for a long time, people were, including us, were sort of saying, all right, his point production last year was decent, but considering he spent so much time with Draisaitl, it's not like his production may be slightly inflated because of that. And it's not a huge deal necessarily, but watching him play the last week, seeing some of his rushes up the ice, you're like, whoa, this guy did not skate like this in Vancouver. He's at another level with his explosiveness. There was a rush in that, in one of the recent games against Colorado, I want to say.
It was, yeah.
Where I was watching the game, like I always have a game on in the background, and I'm kind of like half paying attention if I'm kind of doing some other work. And it was one of those situations where I saw an Edmonton forward whose jersey number started with a 9 loading up in the defensive zone and then just sprinting up the ice, deking through the neutral zone, getting past multiple layers. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's Connor, that's McDavid. And then I'm like, oh God, that was Podkolzin. And then even the other game against Carolina, just bursting out of the gate to win a loose puck and creating a goal out of nowhere. His skating has reached another level. And you're also seeing, because of his confidence, he's looking more and more like the player that he was as a prospect, where with that size, with that speed, with that carrying ability, he's doing more to drive. He's not it's not just he's winning puck battles and working hard and forechecking, which he's always done. Now you're seeing him make dynamic offensive plays, which is really cool. And again, as you said, we're not bringing this up because, dunk on the Canucks. It's more, we covered Podkolzin closely as a prospect. I had so many chats with him, developed a great rapport. I know how humble he is, how hard he worked to get to this point. Yeah. I'm more just really rooting for the player and the person, and I'm so glad for his sake that he's not just established himself as an everyday NHL player now, but that he's a legit difference maker for them.
Yeah, 3 goals in 7 games since the Olympic break for Podkolzin. Add an assist in that time too. So yeah, shout out Podkolzin, man. Yeah, good for him. All right, the Ottawa stuff. Let's get to it. The Ottawa Senators have been given back their first round pick. That now means that the Canucks' first pick of the second round, which was going to be at 32nd overall, that is now going to be 33rd overall.
Yeah, Jacob, you want to chime in and explain all this?
So this is interesting because the way Matt Larkin, who writes for Daily Faceoff, has explained this, the Sens can't win the lottery if they miss the playoffs. A redraft will occur. And I think by redraft, he means like re-lottery spin. That tells me that means the Senators are still getting their coach. Because the way the lottery works is you get like a string of 4 numbers and then the 4 balls pop out. And whatever team has those string of 4 numbers wins the lottery, right? That tells me the Senators are still involved in the lottery. And if they win, which could be a 0.5% or a 2% chance, depending on where they finish, if they miss the playoffs, that tells me that if they just scrap it, that the odds are going to be different. So for the way that Tankathon has been listing this for all of our go arounds here, doing the simulations, is the Canucks having a 25.1% chance at picking first overall. And I think that was just based on the assumption that with Ottawa out, it's going to change all of the percentages below Ottawa and around in the lottery. But if you consider a 16-team lottery, so all you have to do is look back at last year, San Jose had the best odds at number 1 last year at 25.5%. So in theory, if the lottery is going to operate just like it did last year, the Canucks actually have a 0.4% higher chance at picking first overall based on this news, at least from what we've been expecting. Now, internally, there's a chance that the NHL knew all along that that's how they were going to handle the Sens, and it doesn't actually change anything for them. But the public-facing stuff, again, Tankathon has been on top of this the whole time, and the odds they've been giving technically wouldn't line up with what I assume is going to happen based on what Matt Larkin reported. So for everyone who needs the little bit of copium when we do our Tankathon, 0.4% chance, higher chance for the Canucks to pick first overall based on this. Also, I've been looking through, I was having a conversation with someone in the chat about winning the lottery multiple times in a 5-year span. And whether or not, if you finish dead last and you pick first, if that counts as winning the lottery, that does count as winning the lottery. If you pick first or second, no matter what, every first and second overall pick is determined by a lottery winner. I think the only exception to that is if a team that isn't eligible to move up more than 10 spots wins the lottery, then they move up their 10 spots. And then the team picking second technically then wouldn't win the lottery, or even first and second wouldn't win the lottery. Confusing, yes. But the way I understand it is that if you have the mathematical chances at picking first overall, even if you're dead last, if you pick first overall, you won the lottery. You can only do that twice in a 5-year span. So if the Canucks finish dead last, they pick first overall this year, they can only pick first overall one more time in the next 4 years.
That'll work. McKenna, DuPont, no problem. That'll work. Thank you, Jacob, for that. Harm, I mentioned to you yesterday that we were missing a Canadian Heritage moment. I'm sure after the show you went and watched highlights of Canada at the WBC. James Paxton. We're going to have him on the show. Jacob's in the process of booking it. You made contact with Paxton?
No, he's currently at the World Baseball Classic. They're not talking to media right now, especially podcasts from Vancouver, but I will do what I can to get him on the show at some point.
Jacob, book James Paxton. Play the highlight reel for those that hadn't seen it.
Well, first, this was from a game.
Oh yeah, the eagle. Yes, we talked about this.
This was during the U.S. anthem in Minnesota, and they had a bald eagle that got away from its handler. Yeah. And there's James Paxton, who was the starting pitcher that day.
Yeah,
for Seattle.
Look at the poise. He's not even American, and he like still respects the anthem.
You can see the maple leaf tattoo on his arm even right there too, which is funny. And then here's yesterday, 37 years old. He's retired from Major League Baseball. This is literally potentially the final time he ever pitches. If they got eliminated, this would have been it. And he just went out and was absolutely dealing.
Dude, I found out he's retired, and he was asked post game if he'd consider coming out of retirement. He said no. He's like, no, this is it. This is dude's pumping 94, just absolute dominance. Yeah, no, that was special. That was special to watch. Shout out James Paxton, future friend of the show.
That's sweet. He should come out of retirement to join the Jays late, throw out of the bullpen. They could always use an extra arm.
What I'll say to that, Harm, is he grew up a Mariners fan. He pitched his best years with the Mariners. I would, if he's going to come out of retirement for everyone, it's probably Quads' Seattle Mariners.
Yeah, fair enough. I hadn't thought, because he's from BC and a lot of BC guys end up being Mariners fans. And
he played, and he was really good with the Mariners too. Like when the Mariners were a pretty bad team in the 2010s, he was pretty consistently an all-star level pitcher for them.
Yeah, he was. I don't think he
threw a
ever had
no-hitter.
an ERA over 4 in any year with the Mariners.
Threw a no-hitter with the Mariners in Toronto, which was pretty cool. He said that was being able to throw a no-hitter in Canada was like the most special moment of his career. And yeah, seems like a really cool guy. And like I said, I'll try to get him on. We'll see. Again, we might not be a Blue Jays fan, but I told Quads he would have been 7 years old during the '94 Stanley Cup run, growing up in Ladner. I'm sure he had a Canucks jersey somewhere in the closet as a kid.
All right, let's get to our Bet365 bet of the day, which is brought to you by Bet365. Yesterday, I told you to take the underdog Montreal Canadiens at plus 160 odds, and that hit. Montreal beats Ottawa. I don't know if you got a chance to check it out, Harm, but our pal, Max Lapierre, launched his new show, Hockey with an Accent, last night, and those guys went live for so long. They had so many guests come through. I mainly caught the part where Matthew Darsh joined the show, and it was just a great conversation. It was really, really cool to see Max doing his show, doing like he said when he joined the show this week, doing it in English, where he's been doing it for 7 years, in French, doing it in English so I can actually understand what he's saying. Yeah, it was awesome show. Awesome debut show for Max.
When Max was rattling off, PK Subban and Rick Nash and Matthew Darsh and Pascal Leclerc and Kevin Bieksa, I was like, oh, is he going through the whole week of lineup?
Yeah, it's
like all on one show. Just what a flex to be like, yeah, I've got all these guys all on one show.
Yeah, and they'll all answer my call when I call them, like all of them. And that's the funny thing. Like he even said it in the interview with Rick Nash, which I also listened to on that show. He's like, yeah, thanks for doing this, Nash. You're like, we know you don't do media. And he's like, yeah, no, I don't. Like Rick Nash doesn't do podcasts now. He works with Columbus. He doesn't do anything publicly. So yeah, it was awesome. Awesome to see Max launch his show. It looked like he had a really good time. All right, let's take a look at the NHL slate tonight. Really busy NHL slate tonight. I remind everybody, I like to. Thursday, coast to coast on Prime Video. It's the Whip Around show. Andy Petrillo does a great job hosting that show, and it's kind of like Red Zone for hockey. It's a really good opportunity to watch games that maybe you wouldn't normally be able to watch. So check it out. Prime, coast to coast, starts at 4 o'clock Pacific. All right, looking at the NHL slate tonight, the Anaheim Ducks are in Toronto to take on the Leafs. It's even between those two teams. You can get either team at minus 110 odds. I'm going to take Anaheim, the road Ducks, at minus 110. You can get Ducks money line over at Bet365, whatever your bet is. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get on the game. Use the code NATION at Bet365. Must be 19 plus to play. If you choose to play, please play responsibly. All right, fun show. Fun show today. We'll wrap it up there. For my co-host, Harmon Dial, and our technical producer, Jacob Zar, my name is Dave Jelly. Thanks so much for an episode of Canucks Conversation.
Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.